This aligns. Behold my creation.
I will have what I want. There cannot be an escape. Scurry! Scurry! Stand still. Take this. A cascade of pain.
All right, what's up, guys? I wanted to share my build that I've been working on in Affliction League. So, do you like playing a build that requires a ton of buttons, is kind of hard to play, and the only time that you actually have like your full damage potential on a boss or whatever is when they're standing completely still in one place? So if they teleport away, all of your damage is kind of gone. I have the build for you. This build is exactly all of those things, but it does a lot of damage, and it has pretty good defensive stats. Okay, so let me show it off. So despite all the things that I said in the beginning about those downsides, it actually has a lot of pretty decent mechanics and interactions within it that you can probably take into any build, or at least most builds. Was actually a pretty fun build to make, and it's pretty fun to play as well. So let me show off some of the things that it has. So we have 90% all res on this character. We have 100% spell suppression. We have full elemental avoidance, 75% chance to block attack damage, and 67 chance to block spell damage. 1200 life regen, and this goes up to 1800 depending on whether or not you blocked recently. And on top of that, we take no extra damage from critical hits because of Brass Dome. And we have sapping conflux, which means we basically always hit with 20% sap, which means you're taking 20% less damage by anybody who's sapped. So with all of these defensive stats, on top of this, we're doing about like 70 million damage. We have full crit chance. We have 100% crit chance, and we're doing about 70 million damage. So a lot of stuff that's all kind of jammed into this character. I decided on using Firestorm of Pelting. You clicked on this because it says Firestorm of Pelting Ascendant, is like new skill. You could honestly do this with any spell. You could probably, the easiest thing to do is probably stick a Penance Brand on here, and you're going to probably do more damage. You're probably going to have an easier time playing. It's probably going to be better in every way. But I am a masochist and a hipster, and I didn't want to play what everybody else was playing. And also, Penance Brand is broken as fuck. Okay, so I decided to play a ye old classic skill, Old Firestorm. And it actually ended up working pretty well. So yeah, just keep in mind that you don't have to play Firestorm of Pelting. I completely understand that a lot of people are going to have a lot of trouble playing this spell. This is like self-casting hell, and I get it. All right, don't worry. You don't have to play this spell specifically. All right, you could play something a lot more comfortable. Why are we playing an Ascendant? Alright, why? And it's because we have this belt, Leash of Oblation. Leash of Oblation lets us have more than one offering at the same time, which means we can have Bone Offering, Spirit Offering, and Flesh Offering all at the same time. That's why we take the Necromancer Ascendancy on the Ascendant. This lets our offerings also affect you at the loss of some reduced effect, okay? Base values, this really isn't much, okay? This doesn't feel like much, but with this new league are charms that lets you increase the effect of your offerings on your character. If you have 3 of these at 30%, you have 90% increased effect. You also get 20% from your minion offense mastery, and you can get an additional 30%, up to 30%, from a that which was taken jewel. So this ends up being around 140%. You also get an additional 10% increased effect of the offering from your quality on your offerings. So that's a total of 150%. Minus the 50% reduced from the necromancer, you have a 100% increased effect of offerings on your character. So what does this end up equaling? So currently, these are going to be my current values. You can get it up to 100%, but currently I have 97% because of my that which was taken jewel. Our spirit offering is giving us 76 increased crit multi and 291% crit chance. Our flesh offering is giving us 57 increased movement speed and 59% increased attack speed and cast speed. Our bone offering is giving us 68 chance to block attack damage and 67% chance to block spell damage, as well as 7.8% of your life regenerated per second if you have blocked recently. So this gives you a ton of regen as well. This is an absolute insane amount of stats. You can also scale your offering effect a little further if you want. But it takes up a body armor slot. You can use a hunter, like an elevated hunter mod. You can get up to, like, I think it's 35%. Yeah, it's 35% increased offering effect on a hunter mod, or you can use a Searing Exarch implicit, and it goes up to like 24 if you have a perfect one. I decided against it. I thought about this for a long time, but I just decided against it. You honestly get more damage if you get like a corrupted unique with plus to skill gem levels. Plus the skill gem levels increases Firestorm of Pelting's damage by a lot. So I just said, fuck it. We're going to use a Brass Dome. Brass Dome gives us a ton of gives you a ton of all max res. And it ends up actually working really well with this character. But if you want to go this other direction, you totally can. And you could probably make a cool character. Maybe even cooler character. I don't know. But yeah, cooler build, I mean. My character's cooler than yours and you have nothing. Fuck you. Okay? Anyway. All 3 of these offerings, they last at most about like 9 seconds. You need to take this cluster right here because your Leash of Oblation makes you have 50% reduced duration of your offerings. This is from personal experience. I tried it with a regular like crafted trigger mod on my Sceptre. It was not very consistent. It felt very difficult and frustrating to try to keep up your offerings with an 8-second cooldown. I really recommend just ashling slamming this mod, the trigger mod, for 4-second cooldown. It makes it so much easier to play this. So for the amulet, I went with Leadership's Price. This brittle got nerfed a little while ago. It got like hella nerfed, but it's still pretty strong. This amulet still is pretty strong. So there's a big catch to this. So this amulet will give you Scorching Conflux, Brittle Conflux, and Sapping Conflux, which basically means that any kind of damage that you inflict will inflict all 3 of these ailments, alternate ailments. My damage always scorches, always saps, and always brittles. But you need to have your 2 highest attributes to be equal. So, little bit of a warning when you're playing with this amulet. I recommend do not fuck with attributes on your items. You want to be able to swap out your items for upgrades. I solved all of my attributes on the tree. So with my current tree here, the way that it's kind of designed, it's designed with strength and intelligence being at 258. They are both the same. I have 0 attributes on any of my items. None of my items have attributes on them. Maybe there's like some dex somewhere, but they're the only type of attributes that I have on all of my items is just to all attributes, okay? Everything's equal. So my intelligence and my strength is always the same, making it super easy to use Leadership's Price. So there's that. But when you're using Leadership's Price and you have non-damaging ailments, you need to actually scale them a little bit. You only need a little bit of increased effect of non-damaging ailments. I have 30 over here on the tree. I have 20 over here on the tree. So that's 50. I also have critical mastery, 50% increased effect of non-damaging ailments you inflict with critical strikes. So that's 100%. And then we have additional 39% on our boots. This is the Ashling Unveiled mod. I'll show you how to craft all of my items. They're actually not very difficult. I think the most difficult craft that I have on here is this shield. But yeah, for the most part, everything's pretty deterministic, so I'll show everything later in the video. Since we have strength and intelligence, we can combo this with another item really, really well. This actually works super well if we have Rational Doctrine. So this is really cool. We can combo this with Rational Doctrine, so we basically have Profane Ground and Consecrated Effect, like permanently, okay? So Consecrated Effect will give us 50% reduced Curse Effect on us and 5% life regen. And it's basically permanently on you. As long as you like stop every 4 seconds, you will have this like permanently on you. And then we also have Profane Ground. Profane Ground triggers on crit from your spell. So if you're far away, you're still going to trigger it onto the enemy, which gives you, I think it's 100% increased crit chance, and it gives you, it gives you 100% crit chance against the monster, and they also have -10 all elemental resistances. So this is actually a huge, this is probably the most expensive unique item I have on this build. I think it cost me like 25 divs, but this is totally worth it. Let's talk about crit for a second. So you might be thinking, oh, this character crits, so you need to have just like, you need to invest into crit, right? Wrong, okay? None of my items have crit. I have a shitty crit roll on my Sceptre. That's it. I don't have any crit anywhere else. No crit. But I have 100% crit. Actually, I have like 97% crit. Okay, it's on my, where's my, yeah, 97.8% crit. How is that possible? Well, we only have one crit cluster here. It's just this one. This is the only one. So we have 70% crit chance invested on the tree. That's all you need. We have full brittle. So we have 12% base crit chance. We get 291% crit chance from the offering effect, and then we get an additional 100% from Profane Ground. That's enough. That's all you need. You're basically at 97% now. You're at full crit. You don't need to add anything else. And on top of that, we have 443 crit multi. You don't even need to scale crit multi. We have enough. It's sick. Oh, wait. Actually, that's not true. I have one more thing to give me full crit, and that's power charges. My That Which Was Taken jewel gives me power charge on critical strike. So I am using power charges. I only have 3. I didn't invest in more. So since we're using the Leadership's Price, and Leadership's Price gives us a bunch of max resistances. We get fire, cold, and lightning. 2 to fire and lightning, and 3 to max cold. I was wondering if maybe we can get to 90 max res. Ooh, I do have 90 max res. So how did I reach that? Okay. We're using Brass Dome. Brass Dome gives us 5% to all maximum elemental resistances, and it also makes us immune to critical strikes. So we got 5 from our body armor. We get 2 from our shield. I have a 2 to all max res shield. Fractured. This will cost you this cost me like 4 divs. If you use a fossilized spirit shield, we can use minion stuff because we're taking spiritual aid. So you can save some money on getting a fossilized spirit shield with +2 to all max res. We have 2 to max lightning res on the helmet and 2 to max fire res on the boots, and then the rest comes from the tree. We get this node for 2. We get this we get this armor mastery for an additional 1. We get 1 from Soul of Steel, and then we get 1 max cold res from this node right here, which ends up being 90% all res. And we're not even using like any purity aura. You just get it. It's fucking awesome. It's so cool. This build's so cool. We have 100% spell suppression too, on top of everything. So we're using this cluster right here for 22% spell suppression. We have spell suppression on our helmet, on our gloves, and our boots. And we also have spell suppression from the Raider Ascendancy right here. So we get 20%. We also get movement speed, onslaught, and frenzy charges, and phasing. So that ends up being 100% spell suppression. Oh yeah, we also have Inveterate on our amulet. So our amulet has 15% spell suppression. This ends up being 100. So yeah, 100% spell suppression. So we combo this with the Ancestral Vision. This actually took a little bit of fine-tuning to get right. We have 100% avoid elemental ailments, but we had to get a exceptional Eater of Worlds mod on our boots, along with a that which was taken jewel that has 23 chance to avoid elemental ailments while phasing. So this added with the Eater of Worlds mod and the jewel, we end up at 100%. We can use Righteous Fire because we have a ton of life regen just on the tree too. So we're using Petrified Blood and then Brink of Death. So this gives us 4% life regen while on low life. We also have Consecrated Ground. We also have a whole bunch of life regeneration rate, increased life regen rate on our helmet, on our gloves, and our boots. We don't need any elemental resistances on our items, on most of our items, except for rings. I tried to jam basically for the rings, you just jam as much resistances as you can onto these. But I also tried to fit as much elemental resistances as suffixes for my charms. There isn't really anything else that you can have on your charms. Corvine charms, at least for this character, Corvine charms don't really have a great suffix that you can use. So this ends up being the best in slot, basically. Yeah, so comboed with all of our life regen, we end up with 1200 when we're standing still. If we block recently because of what Bone Offering gives us some life regen after we block, it ends up getting up to 1800 life regen. So we have a ton of life regen. We can sustain Righteous Fire, 40% increased spell damage. Mana cost. All right, so you might, if you start setting up this character, you might notice that this character, this build has some mana problems, and you are correct. Okay, these offerings comboed with the trigger mod ends up being a lot of mana cost. Okay, right now I have them at 33% or 33 mana cost, and I recommend if you have 33 mana cost, you should have about like 100 mana in order to run this comfortably. So if it's like 50, you should have 150 mana to run this comfortably. You want to make sure you can cast all three pretty quickly, one after another. Okay, that's all I recommend. That's what you need for this build. So let me show you how I solve our mana problems. I took this cluster right here. We get 25% reduced mana cost of skills from this, and then we get an additional 15% reduced mana cost over here. So that's a total of 40 from the tree. We have 2 jewels with 5% reduced mana cost of skills, so that now we're at 50. And then we have 2 rings with 5% reduced mana cost of skills. So we're at 60% reduced mana cost of skills. That brings our offerings down to 33 mana, which means I only need about 100 mana that's not reserved. We're using inspiration with our Firestorm of Pelting, but I want to make sure that you guys understand, do not corrupt this to level 21. You want to keep this at level 20. You want it to stay at 39% reduced mana cost. Because if it's at 40, that means that your Firestorm or whatever skill you're using will not have mana. It will not cost mana, which means you will not get inspiration charges, which means you won't get the benefit of your 6th, or of the inspiration support. So make sure that your Firestorm costs mana. Just make sure of it, okay? But for your blessing, you can have level 21 blessing, a level 21 inspiration support for your blessing. This ends up making it 40% reduced mana cost, which means my whatever, well, this is supposed to be zealotry actually. I think I was just using this to go through something quickly. This means that whatever aura you have connected to your blessing, it's gonna be free. So you can just fucking spam that shit all you want. For auras, I'm using Anger with a double Anger Watcher's Eye. So not a lot of people use Anger, which means that Anger is pretty cheap, at least for Watcher's Eye. Watcher's Eye Anger, pretty cheap. You might be able to get like a triple Anger Watcher's Eye for not even that much, maybe like 50 div to 100 div. I got this jewel for, I think it was like 4 div earlier in the league. But yeah, pretty strong. So Anger, it's definitely weaker than Wrath and Hatred, but if you combo it with like a really good Watcher's Eye, it's pretty good, and it scales the Firestorm pretty well. We're using D-Term for a little bit of physical damage reduction, and then we're using Petrified Blood for, we get a whole bunch of life regen, and we can use Pain Attunement with it for 30% more spell damage. We are using Herald of Ash with our Arrogance, so we're reserving life for it. Herald of Ash gives you 13% more spell fire damage, and it helps you clear a little better because it has like a AoE effect to it. And then we're also using Zealotry with our Blessing. When you're fighting bosses, so normally when you're mapping, you want to just have it set up to, let me just show you the skill gem setup. So I have Firestorm of Pelting, level 21 with 20% quality. I have Fire Penetration, increased critical damage support, Intensify, increased area of effect, and Inspiration. When you're fighting a boss, switch your increased area of effect with concentrated effect. And you want to take the Caster Mastery where you get an additional maximum intensity. When you're fighting a boss, when you're doing single target damage, you want to have your AoE as small as possible. So AoE affects both area at which they drop and the area of effect of the little bolt themselves. You just kind of want it to be dropped within the smallest area you can possibly drop them in, especially since like most bosses are kind of like big. They have like a big target. So as long as they have like a decently sized target, most of the Firestorm bolts, flaming bolts, yeah, most of the Firestorm bolts will hit the boss. So what you want to do when you're fighting a boss, switch to concentrated effect, and then try to get your intensity up to 4. And once you have it at 4, most of these will hit the boss, and you'll do a ton of damage. So how much damage does this build do? All right, this build The way that you calculate your damage, I set it to 19, I think, on here, the count. But this isn't accurate. This is based off of your cast rate. So if you have a higher cast rate or a lower cast rate, this number changes. If you have 10 stacks of Firestorm, you should be hitting them at most. This is like if every single bolt hits the enemy, you will at most hit them 66.6 times per second. So all you have to do is take your average hit, multiply that by 66.6. This ends up being about 75 million DPS for my character. You could also, if you just wanted to calculate here, kind of like a loose number, you take 66.6 and you divide it by your cast rate, and that's the number that your count should be at for your skill here. So I took 66.6 divided by 3.68. That ended up being close to like 19, so I just added 19 onto here. And yep, that's how you do it. That's how you get your damage. Let me show you how to craft some stuff. All right, so first we'll show you how to craft this scepter. Most of this is pretty deterministic. I have a little scepter set up over here. Okay, so I'm gonna start with just a regular scepter. It's not fractured or anything. It actually makes it a little harder if you do fracture it. So basically what you want to do is you start with essences. You want to buy, okay, you either start with essences or you buy one, all right? You want to buy a, you want your, where is it? Whoa, yeah. So you want your scepter to have a really high tier spell damage mod and tier 1 flat fire damage. So you just basically spam woe until you get flat fire damage. This mod right here, except it should be tier 1. This will take you about 50 on average or so. If you're in trade, I recommend you could just buy a tier 1 spell damage and tier 1 fire damage to spell scepter. There you go. This is what you're aiming for. You just want these two prefixes right here. Next, what we have to do is you have to make them alone. You have to remove all other mods. Prefixes cannot be changed. Scour. This is what you want. You just want these two mods. This is going to cost you 5 divs. You say can have up to 3 crafted modifiers. Prefixes cannot change, and then cannot roll attack modifiers. These are the 3 that you need. Og Harvest Fire, and you are going to get +1 to all fire spell skill gems every single time. It's 100% deterministic. This is the only thing you can get, and hopefully you don't lose your prefixes cannot be changed. What I ended up doing is I just did a Veiled Chaos Orb. You get a Veiled Suffix, and you are aiming for this mod, the trigger mod. That's it. Just keep on using prefixes cannot be changed, blah, 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 and keep going with the, until you get this mod. The trigger a socketed spell on using a skill with a 4-second cooldown. So you keep doing it until you get this. Now, all of these mods are caster mods, which means that if you just exalt, you can remove whatever you exalted as long as it's not a caster mod. So if I just exalt it and I don't get a good mod, you can just craft this, cannot roll caster mods, and annul it. Well, hopefully you annul it. Sometimes you get unlucky and that happens and it costs you a bunch of divs. You're kidding me. Come on. Stop. There you go. Piece of shit. Fuck you. And you can just keep crafting it this way until you get a mod that you want. You can do this until you get global critical strike multi, right? You can keep on, and it's like basically determined because you can't roll a caster mod. Okay, you never will. You can do this forever until you get crit multi. It might cost you a lot, but in this league everything's cheap as fuck. So just you can keep doing it until you get it. I aimed for getting cast speed, which is kind of a mistake because I didn't get it. I got a pretty shit critical strike chance for spells, which is a caster mod. You can't remove the caster mod. You can't remove it. There's no way you can remove it, not deterministically. So I would have to restart all of my suffixes in order to get it. But once you get it, you just craft double damage while focused. If you're a lazy fuck and you don't want to have a focus button, which this is the wrong way to play, by the way. It's wrong, okay? I don't care what you say. I don't care if you hate buttons. It's the wrong way to play. Double damage focus mod is so much better. Just craft it. 15% chance to deal double damage while focused. There's your Sceptre. So Sceptre, not that hard, not that bad. Pretty easy to make. Next is the shield. All right, so the shield is actually kind of, it's not actually hard. It's all deterministic too. Everything's all deterministic when crafting this stuff. The problem with the shield, you can't use essences. So hold on. The essences like Woe will give you maximum energy shield. This is not what you want. You want spell damage. You want spell damage and life. So for my shield here, my prefixes are minions deal increased damage, max life, and fire spell skills, right? You don't want anything else but maximum life and minions deal increased damage, okay? The only way you can get this is by Alt, Regal spamming until you get both those mods, until you get a high roll. This is what you want, but you do it until you get like tier 1 or 2 max life, or tier 3, 2, or 1 spell damage or minion damage. We can use minion damage because we have spiritual aid, remember? Oh, you could also get fire damage. Fire damage works too. They're super rare. These mods are incredibly rare. The spell damage mod is incredibly rare. That's why it's a real pain in the ass. It is going to take you, on average, okay, and I'm really sorry about this if you decide to do this. It's going to take you about, on average, 100 regals and 3,000 alteration orbs. That's how long it takes. So once you have these mods, where are they? Let's say we got tier 1. We sat there and we did it until we got the mods we want. Let's say we got these two right here. This is what I currently have, actually. Actually, no, I have 84%. Yeah, I have tier 3 minion damage and tier 1 life. First, what you want to do, craft any prefix. Doesn't matter what prefix it is. Just craft it on the bench and exalt. Doesn't matter what you exalt. Anything. Oops, I did twice. Just exalt anything. Res is fine. Who cares? Exalt it and get an additional suffix. All right. Then we go to our we craft. Prefixes cannot be changed. That's it. This is all you need to do. You wanna fill up your suffixes and craft prefixes cannot be changed. And then you just harvest Aug Fire, and it's 100% determined. It's gonna give you +1 to level of all fire spell skill gems. If you get rid of the prefixes cannot be changed, you're gonna have to get rid of the other suffix. So you're just gonna have to scour it. If you don't and you still have it, fucking sick. All right, you're ready for the next step. Next step is Ashling Slam. Just Ashling Slam until you get double damage focus mod. All right. The best thing to block to have the highest chance of getting focus double damage is strength and dexterity, or strength and intelligence. Where is strength and intelligence? Yeah, this one. So craft strength and intelligence and then unveil. It has a pretty high chance of actually hitting the mod. And then for your last mod, just craft double damage or whatever you need. If you need like a little bit of any other mod, that's fine too. But I just crafted double damage. There you go. There's your fucking best in slot shield. Sick. All right, next. How did I craft my boots and my gloves? I actually crafted them the exact same way. And this is probably not going to be as easy next league. All right, next league is probably going to be a little harder, but this league it was super easy to craft this stuff. So start off with a fractured suppression base. To make it, this is the easiest way to do it. Just start off with a fractured suppression base, and all you do really You just spam Veiled Chaos Orbs until you get life regen and a suffix. And that's it. You spam them. You can get like 50 in a div. Hold on. I think it's like 50 per div. Let me check real quick. I might be fucking wrong at this moment. Yeah, one div gets you 60 Veiled Chaos Orbs. So you could spam 60 of these. And eventually you will hit it. You will hit the thing that you want. You just keep spamming them. But you want life regen and Veiled Suffix with increased effect of non-damaging ailments. Okay, we got something here. All right. So basically, this is kind of what you want. You want a higher life regen roll, but you know it is what it is. So you just spam them until you get them. I spent like 150 here. That's like 2.5 divs. This was unlucky, by the way. This is an unlucky roll. I did this for the boots to get the non-damaging ailments, and I did the same thing to get the increased cast and attack speed with the gloves. So just spam Veiled Chaos Orbs. And then for the prefixes, all you really do is you just do Eldritch Crafting, because these are so cheap now. They're super cheap. Just keep throwing Chaos Eldritch Orbs on them until you get the right, until you get a good life roll. And that's it. And then you're done with your, for boots, I guess you need movement speed too. So normally you would get like a good life roll, and then you can craft movement speed. With gloves, you can craft minion damage. So that's what I did here with my gloves. I got a tier 1 max life finally, and then I just crafted minions deal increased damage, because that's just increased damage for us. For the helmet, I decided to put Chaos Res, because I was missing some Chaos Res, and I got increased life regen rate. This is also really easy to make, and it's kind of it's actually the exact same way of crafting as gloves and boots, except this time you're just harvest crafting Reforge Chaos. This will always roll Chaos resistance, so you just keep rolling Chaos Res until you get like a good regen mod. And here you go, tier 2 life regen, flat regen with tier 1 Chaos Res. And then you do the same thing with Eldritch Crafting. Since these are super cheap these league, you could just Chaos spam until you get tier 1 life. Yeah, there we go. We got tier 1 life, and then you just craft physical damage from hits taken as fire damage. Yeah, you just craft this. You got a pretty good helmet now. There you go. The rest of it is basically just getting like the right Searing Exarch and Eater mods. You might have to use, if you're unlucky, use quite a bit of Orb of Conflicts in order to get your Searing Exarch implicits to +2 maximum lightning and fire res on your boots. This is like such a cheap build. This is such a cheap build, and it's so efficient, and it does so much damage. All right, you guys have fun. Okay, hopefully, I hope that at least one of you tries to make this build. That'll make me really happy. All right, I'm done. Have fun. See you next time.